exercise if you know any 3-year-olds, they're very amusing. She said that she wanted to be an orange. And then I thought about it for a while and went, that is amazing. At 3, you actually don't know that you can't not be an orange. I mean, when you start thinking about it, you go, okay, so you actually think you can be an orange. It's quite a viable option. And I enjoyed that so much that about 3 months later I asked her what she wanted to be again, and she said, a chicken. I said, no, a boy chicken. They're better. Maybe not, but... So between 3, 3 and a half, ask them what they want to be, see what happens. But talking to children that age, they have no idea or constraint about what they can and can't be. Gradually we learn that all these things tell us what we can and can't be, and then we have these options, and we end up being the things maybe that we don't necessarily want to be. But the idea of food comes in because I like the idea of being able to be an orange, because I'm a bit of an existentialist. So I believe that all the things that happen to me are through cause and effect. There's no greater power guiding me. It really is about the choices that I make about what I do that sum up what I am. The air I breathe, the food I eat, the community I live in, the relationships I have, the exchange I have, are really, that's who I am. So this idea of being an existentialist and being completely detached, and it's all about cause and effect, and there's no greater power, so it's all my choice. I went, well, I'm completely free. And then I went, well, actually, no, I'm not, because if I am the sum of the parts connected to the food I eat, the air I breathe, and the water that I drink, or a lot of wine back then, I am made up of all these components of everything that surrounds me. I'm actually connected very, very closely to the environment that I live in. And what I am is actually built over 7 years. Every 7 years, every complete cell in your body is replaced. So if you really want to change, it takes about 7 years. From the bones to the skin to those cells that replace themselves quite quickly. I'm a chef really, so I'm not really a scientist, but a little bit. So through food, when we make choices about what we eat, and this is a first world problem because we know that poor people don't necessarily get to choose what they eat. They get to eat what they can afford and what's given to them and what's around them. But pretty much today, no one's forcing us to eat Mars bars or Kentucky Fried Chicken or, you know, buy that processed food with barcodes. We actually choose that. Or we have an education, or we have a social environment that lets us make those decisions because they're the only decisions that we know, or they're the only things that we're comfortable with. But if you do have a choice, and you are responsible for who you are and what sort of person you're going to be, you're also responsible for the circumstances and cause and effect of those choices. So it's pretty logical to me to buy local food, because when you're buying food from a farmer's market, I'm the ex-CEO of the Adelaide Farmers Market, which was my complete passion, and I'm still very passionate about it. I'm going to extend that further into more community work. But when you buy local food, you're buying from the farmer that you know, or the area that you know, or the region that you know. You're buying food from somebody who puts money back into that community, into these communities in regional Australia. And if you ever take a drive around regional Australia, you'll start seeing that's kind of dying in parts. There are small towns out there that look like Clint Eastwood should be walking down the main street. It's quite scary how these communities are dying. But farmers markets, for example, true farmers markets where you're getting a farmer in who's driven 6 hours, bought his product there, and you're buying it from him, that money's going back to that little town. It's going back to feed his kids, it's going back into his main street and reviving his main street and all the people that support him in his environment and his community. Because these towns are dying and they need small towns, and we need regional communities to support the people that live there. Because we need that texture in our environment. We need texture in our food, we need texture in our art, and we need texture in our personalities. When we eat, we break things down via texture. We have sharpness, crispness, sweetness, acid. We have all these components. But if you ever notice commercial food, no texture, no acid, no sharpness, it's sort of homogeneous. We want flavour. We want to buy from somebody that we know, or where does that food come from? We can break down the DNA soon of that broccoli, I'm sure, to find out where it came from. And we want to put money back into those communities because they're going to help keep us alive. They're going to help make us a tourist destination. They're going to help bring people to where we are because we need an enlivened space to create more jobs. And we do this every day, 3 times a day or more. We make a decision about what we're going to eat. So we can make different choices and have a very big effect, quite simply. And that's pretty exciting to me because what we're talking about is food. And it's really interesting to look at global trends. And I don't know if anyone knows about the MAD Symposium and René Redzepi and the world's top #1 restaurant. What he relies on is making a big deal out of Danish food, making a very big deal out of foraged food, making a very extremely big deal about food that you wouldn't even think you could eat, like pine needles or foraged little tiny mushrooms. He's creating flavours with food that nobody ever even looked at before unless they were starving and they had to eat out of the forest. So that's what the peasants were doing. We're de-evolving. We're looking back at what's closest to us and nearest to us to assimilate into our void and what we're saying, our identity. So the Australian culture is actually doing that by starting to look at its regions. Paris and France, they looked at their regions and they defined what they were doing a long time ago. And everyone knows Brie and Champagne, and you can't call it Champagne here because it's sparkling wine. But we're evolving and we're starting to look at our regions and go, well, what makes these people different to those people? Well, they have a different climate. Their Cabernets are more chocolatey. Their Shirazes are bigger. They're settled by Germans. They're near the sea. They have a nudist beach. They're a bit different. So we start to look at people and regions and see the different personalities. And once we understand our regions, we start to understand our culture. Not as an assimilated, tasteless, textureless mass, but as a country made up of different regions. And we do that by looking at our food, by our culture, and the choices that people would make if they ate what was nearest to them. So not are we only producing ourselves, we're producing a culture of a region, which is then the culture mapped out to support all the other regions that then make our state. And that's what we're promoting. And then our nation, and onwards and upwards. So it's simple choices about what we eat that help create where we live. And I guess, going back to your other question, go ahead. What's the opposite to sustainability? Not sustainable. If you're not sustainable, you're basically dead. So there's not really a